Hi guys, David here from Beyond the Kingdoms, and it's time for some more tips before your next trip to Walt Disney World. And today I'm sharing my top 10 tips while visiting the Magic Kingdom, Florida's premier theme park. And this one is a biggie, so let's not waste any time and get right to the point. Tip number 1, give yourself 2 days to experience this park. I know I've said this in the past for other parks, but no matter what your age group or when the last time you visited was, Magic Kingdom is best enjoyed when you split it up. Especially if you're hoping to do everything that this park has to offer. Magic Kingdom has the most number of attractions of all the parks in Florida. If you're hoping to do as much as possible at Magic Kingdom, you can split your days in whatever combination works best for your family. However, if you haven't been in a while and you need some help drawing up a plan, I have a simple suggestion. Pair up Fantasyland and Adventureland in one day and combine Tomorrowland with Frontierland and Liberty Square for your second day. When you take a step back and look at the number of attractions spread out between the lands and what's most popular, I find this to be the best combination. Fantasyland is clearly the biggest land of them all, and it's great for little ones because there's a lot to see and do here, but it will take up the majority of a single day. Hence why I like to couple it with Adventureland. It's perhaps the least busy corner of Magic Kingdom, and almost all of the attractions in this land have short wait times later in the day. Tip number 2, rope drop, rope drop, rope drop. I know that some folks are not morning people, and a lot of you don't want to spend your entire vacation waking up at the crack of dawn to go running towards your favorite attraction that you couldn't score a fast pass for. If so, I think it's best to sleep in on days that you're visiting other parks. But if it's one park in particular to rope drop, it's Magic Kingdom. And make sure you rope drop properly. Magic Kingdom has a new entry procedure in the morning. If the park is scheduled to open at 9 a.m., Main Street will actually open at 8 a.m., allowing guests to start entering the park earlier and avoid bottlenecking at the entrance. By 8:30 or so, you'll start to see crowds forming at the entrance to the bridges into the various lands near the hub. So, it's best to check the opening time, factor in that the park is actually open an hour earlier, and calculate how much time it will take you to drive to the parking lot or to get on a bus so that you truly are at the front of the pack when you rope drop. Tip number 3. Another good thing to do earlier in the day is to go shopping. If you're not rope dropping the park to head straight towards a popular attraction, that extra hour in the morning can be a good time to go shopping on Main Street. The Emporium can be an absolute nightmare at the end of the night, because that's when everyone chooses to go shopping. So, I like to check out the stores earlier in the day when it's less crowded. And remember, if you don't want to carry some souvenir items all day long, you can have your merchandise delivered to your room or to the front of the park to pick up on the way out, at no extra cost. You can do the latter even if you're not staying on property. Next up, we're looking at characters. Tip number 4 is to double check if your favorite characters are at another park that you'll be visiting. I know that it's really tempting to meet Mickey Mouse first thing in the morning on Main Street. But again, time is everything at this park. And you want to make sure you maximize your time at Magic Kingdom as much as you can. If you have a slower day at another park that has a character that you want to meet, do it there as opposed to here at Magic Kingdom. It's worth noting that the Fab Five can be found at every single theme park, so there are plenty of options. Keep in mind that a lot of princesses can be found at Epcot too, and that can be a good way to keep your kids entertained while touring World Showcase. Another alternative to characters is dining at a character meal, so you don't have to use a fast pass to meet a character inside the park. But I'll have more on that later. Tip number 5. Utilize the mobile food ordering service. This is another tip that's all about maximizing time. Magic Kingdom is the busiest park of them all, and the quick service restaurants can get really packed on a crowded day. So again, if you're a little afraid of technology, I understand, but this is definitely a park to overcome those fears and to use it. There's no extra cost to use this service, and it's available at all the major quick service locations in the park. You can order your food at any time on the My Disney Experience app and simply tap on a button when you're ready to eat and pick up your food. It's very simple. Tip number 6, take a break at a nearby hotel. It's always good to take breaks at the parks, especially in the hotter months of the year. But at Magic Kingdom, I sometimes like to take a break by actually stepping out of the park and visiting a hotel on the monorail. I know that this can be very time-consuming, but this is also why I like to split this park up into 2 days. A good reason to visit a nearby hotel like the Polynesian or the Contemporary is to enjoy a meal. I find that with the exception of Be Our Guest, most of the dining options at Magic Kingdom is just mediocre. These nearby hotels are home to some fantastic restaurants, and escaping the crowds to these wonderful eateries is the perfect excuse for a break. Again, some of these locations offer character dining options, which will free up fast passes and time in the park waiting in line for a character. And if taking time away from the middle of your day is not appealing, you can also consider a character breakfast at one of these hotels before you enter the park. It will get you started on the right foot, and if you're not staying at one of these hotels, it's a good way to sample a taste of the magic. If leaving Magic Kingdom for a break is simply not in your itinerary, then consider tip number 7, which is to seek out the few quiet corners in the park for a break. My favorite quiet spot at Magic Kingdom is the pathway between the Fantasyland train station and Space Mountain. It runs alongside the train tracks and the speedway. There are a few benches here, and it's perhaps the last quiet corner truly left at Magic Kingdom. Now, keep in mind that this area may be closed off soon. Starting in December of this year, the Walt Disney World Railroad will not circle the park and stay stationary at the entrance of Main Street, while some construction is carried out on the upcoming Tron coaster. It's possible that these works could affect that walkway, so it's worth keeping in mind. If that location doesn't work out, my next favorite spot is on Tom Sawyer Island. This little retreat in Frontierland is a great way to escape the intense crowds of the park, but still feel connected to all the action. You get fantastic views of Thunder Mountain here, and some areas include some rocking chairs in the shade. Another good break option is to enjoy one of the 4 animatronic shows, like the Carousel of Progress. They're long, there's air conditioning, and you can usually just walk right in without waiting. And finally, another relaxing break at Magic Kingdom is to enjoy a ride on the Tomorrowland People Mover. Okay, we're at the home stretch now, so let's hit tip number 8. Know your shortcuts. When you visited the parks as much as I have, you begin to know where the bathrooms and the shortcuts are without even looking at a map. One shortcut that I love to use is if I'm entering the park a little later in the day, and that is the Emporium. You can walk from the very front of the Emporium in Town Square all the way through to Casey's Corner without ever stepping foot outside. This has proven to be especially helpful when the parade is passing by, but I'm trying to get to a Fast Pass reservation in Adventureland or Frontierland. Unfortunately, the east side of Main Street doesn't have a string of stores connected to each other. But if you're in a hurry to get to something like Space Mountain and the hub is packed, remember that you can cut through the path in front of the Plaza restaurant and through Tomorrowland Terrace to get to Tomorrowland a little more quickly. And both of these shortcuts are especially helpful if you're caught in a big thunderstorm. Tip number 9, score the best seats in the house. Some of the big thrill rides are best experienced in specific rows of the train. And there's no shame in asking a cast member to sit in the front row at Splash Mountain, for example. Just always make sure that you ask very nicely. I always say, is it okay if I wait for the next train to sit in the front row? It signals that while I want a specific row, I am more than happy to wait and don't want to cause any confusion. It costs absolutely nothing to say please and thank you. I find that Splash and Space Mountain are best experienced in the front row for the biggest thrill. Thunder is best to enjoy at the very back for a bumpier ride. And Seven Dwarfs is best somewhere in the middle, so that you get the bigger thrills of the back cars, but still get good views of the show scenes in the middle of the attraction. And finally, we're at tip number 10, and that is to know your options when it comes to enjoying Happily Ever After. When I first heard that the Wishes fireworks display was being replaced, I was absolutely devastated. However, Happily Ever After is without a doubt the best nighttime spectacular currently running at Walt Disney World. Ever since it premiered, huge crowds have poured into the Magic Kingdom to enjoy it. You can choose to snag a spot a good hour before showtime if that's the way you roll, but there are alternatives to waiting. I know I say this a lot, but this is especially helpful here, and that is to consider the dessert party. If you can only budget one dessert party, because believe me, they're not cheap, this is certainly the one to book. Even removing the quality of food, it is so worth paying the extra cash to reserve a viewing spot for this show because it is immensely popular, no matter what time of year. But if paying extra money is not economical for you, then it's worth noting some decent alternatives to viewing the show at the Hub or on Main Street. One of them is the Tomorrowland Bridge. You'll be skewed off to the side, but you'll still see a good amount of the projections and Tinkerbell fly. Another decent spot that I recently found is the Main Street Bypass. This area is used for the Halloween and Christmas parties, and it runs parallel to Main Street, behind the stores, and in between Tomorrowland. If it's open, this spot is a hidden gem, and you'll see a very good portion of the castle, and it's far away from the big crowds. But if crowds make you really anxious, there's one more option, and that's to view the show from the balcony at California Grill. You can reserve a table here, enjoy a fantastic meal, and get a killer view of Magic Kingdom. If this restaurant is out of your price range, remember that there's a lounge here too. If you're looking to just order an appetizer and a glass of wine, I would visit this lounge earlier in the evening around 5 p.m. and keep your receipt. That will allow you to come back up later in the night simply to head out onto the balcony and enjoy the show. If you try visiting this lounge right before showtime, the lounge may be too crowded for you to be let in, so this is an easier and stress-free alternative. So there you have it, my friends, my top 10 tips while visiting the most magical place on earth, the Magic Kingdom. I always think that if you've paid a lot of money to experience Disney, you gotta know what you're in for. And it's best to have a plan or some of these tips in your pocket, just so that you can feel that you got your money's worth and you can enjoy the experience with your family. But that will have to do it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, if you can dream it, you can do it.